Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 3 of the MTBA Draft League Pick'ems. Today we are joined by Rewt.
Hello.
And we are joined by Marsh.
Hello, hello. Hope everyone's
as
doing
well as myself. Now you can pick along with us in our community Discord. Link is in the description below. We highly encourage that you join. The first matchup we're going to talk about today is the Green Bay PIKACHUS, the flying type team, versus SOL, the Solar Hill Samurats, the electric type team. Marsh, what is your take on this matchup?
Well, starting off, this week is very type disadvantage and advantage matchups. There's about 5 of them, which are direct disadvantage or advantage based on the primary typing, this being one of them. And the electric by the cover does look like a very good team against a flying type team in general, since electric is very fast, very offensive against a flying team that normally isn't that bulky. However, I feel like Jacob did a good job of drafting against his weaknesses, such as electric, between the Aerodactyl, which not much is going to outspeed other than maybe a Scarfed Coco or Zeraora, as well as having that Landorus, which is going to be huge, since his the only immunities for the ground stab is the Zapdos and the Rotom forms, and having access to Stone Edge, as well as Mega Aerodactyl having access to Stone Edge and Earthquake, it covers a lot of the electric team. And having bulky mons that can tank a hit from electric types, such as Thundurus and the Celesteela, I feel like it's going to be a very close match, but I do feel like Jacob drafted a good enough team to where the Rotom Ice and the Zeraora and the Tapu Koko might not have enough impact to deal with the counters that he drafted for this matchup in particular. Rewt, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of you said. The direct type advantage is a huge factor here. I do think that obviously Landorus is going to be one of the things that kind of tips the scales in either direction, but I also think he has one of the best answers to it in terms of that Rotom. I think Rotom is going to be able to stand in front of it for a very long time, and it's going to stop a lot of what it's trying to do. I think he has a lot of tools that can kind of deal with it. Obviously, one of the things that we've been talking about for a lot of the season is the Celesteela, and that's going to likely be shut down if it even comes. I think it's difficult to justify bringing this week, and it's going to be and it's always been one of the strongest difference makers on the team there. Obviously Jacob has still a really strong team around it, but I'm going for the electric type team mostly because of that type advantage. But Jacob is a very creative builder. I've seen him build some wild things in the past, and I think if anyone can do this, I think he can pull it off, but it's going to be pretty uphill. I think the electric type team has a lot of the tools that it needs in this matchup here.
Just to clarify, Marsh, who are you voting for who are you picking for this matchup?
I apologize. I am voting for the flying type team, the Green Bay PIKACHUS.
Okay. I am agreeing with you, Marsh. I'm also going with the Green Bay PIKACHUS. Just the way that Jacob has built this team, and just the way that he has an answer for the electric type team. Not that the electric type team they have answers for the flying type team too, but I just think that the way that Jacob battles is that he has the edge with this team over the electric type team. Now, Rewt, what did the fans say about
this one looks pretty overwhelmingly in favor of the electric type team. Again, I'm sure type advantage had a lot to deal with here, but like I said, if anybody can pull it off, I think Jacob can. He's shown to be a really creative builder, but for me personally, again, I just think that the electric type team has a lot of really strong firepower on its side, and that Rotom I think can be the difference maker, absolutely.
One thing I did want to point out here is that last week or the week before, I'm not exactly sure, but Salem did decide to trade for free agency to pick up Rotom Frost. And I feel like he picked it at this timing because he wanted to use it against a flying team to where the ice would be quite effective against the Landorus to deal with that. And a couple other things that it can do that maybe Rotom Mo might not be able to. So I feel like he might choose that. However, Rotom Mo, as you said, is a very good stall tactic, or like maybe get a toxic off on the Landorus to deal with it.
That's very true. So now for our second matchup, we have the new team under Quillen, the Chicago Kirums, the poison type team, versus the PS2 Bolt Strike, the ground type team. Now, Rewt, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting matchup going into it. I do like the Poison team. Obviously, I've said from the very beginning that I'm rooting for this team more than any. But for this matchup, I think I had to give it to the ground team. Now, this is going to be another direct type advantage, but when I look at them both side by side, I do kind of get the feeling that the ground type team has the stronger raw draft. I think they have a lot of strong offensive options, strong offensive threats, and the poison team is kind of built very top heavy, where it has some strong mons at the top and kind of falls off reasonably quickly. And this is going to be a new coach that's going to be kind of getting used to this team for the first time, building with it, battling with it for the first time. He might not be entirely comfortable with it yet, so I would personally go and give it to this ground type team. But Marsh, what do you think?
I do agree with a lot of what you were saying, and I chose the poison type team to start off, mainly because I have heard that Quillen is a good coach, and I feel like he might be able to use this team, although he didn't draft it himself, very well because, or especially in this week, because it has things such as the Haunter with Levitate, as the Crobat, the Mega Venusaur, the Tentacruel, and the Tentacruel has access to Giga Drain as well as Hydro Pump and a couple other stab water moves that can handle a lot of what the ground team can do against the poison typing, as well as it can be run very fast with things as the tailwind for the Crobat, and the ground team naturally is fairly slow, other than maybe the Excadrill with a Scarf or a Sand Rush. So I feel like even though the ground team does have strong Earthquake stab that it can bring in, the poison team has enough that it can handle it without devoting too much resources to bigger threats such as the Steelix or the Excadrill or the Hippowdon, that I have faith that this poison team can pull out a win, even though it is at a disadvantage due to the typing. That's why
I
I'm voting for that this week.
I agree with Marsh. Actually, I wonder if we agreeing with the other matchups of this week. But
We shall
I
see.
the game changer I think is the coach itself himself, Quillen. I think just the unpredictable, like the newness of the coach. We don't really know his play style. Like in the past of this draft league, we just don't know much about how he plays with this team. So I think just the element of surprise, along with what you said, the Venusaur, the Tentacruel, being faster than the ground type team, edges him out of victory. Now, Marsh, what did the fans think of this week?
The fans overwhelmingly put the ground type team as their favorite to win this matchup. I feel like they mainly did because of obviously the direct type disadvantages the poison team has, as well as they aren't too sure how the poison type coach will run this team because he didn't draft it and because it is a fairly new experience for him in like this particular league.
Next up, for the third match of the week, we have the Belleville Weasels, the fairy type team, versus the Grand Rapids Groviles, the dragon type team. Marsh, what you got on this matchup?
Well, to start off, the dragon team is going to have a very, very tough time because all of its stab, or most of its stab, is immune to the fairy type in general, as well as having the sorry, my bad, the Magirna to counteract the Dragalge poison stab can do a lot for this fairy team, as well as if the Azumarill gets set up, it can do major damage with a Play Rough or even an Aqua Jet on something like a Zygarde that is fairly slow and not as defensive. And the Duraludon and the Dragalge, which is their main two counters for a fairy team that Michael drafted, are fairly slow mons, and they are bulky, but they might not be able to put enough output and damage before they get whittled down themselves and die. And I hope that he can find out some crafty scheme or pull a couple tricks out of his sleeve because he is a very good battler, and I feel like this team does have a lot of little technical and situational plays it can do. But I do feel like the fairy type with the stab and being immune to a lot of the dragon stab as well as the options they have to resist and to basically immune some of the poison damage as well in Magirna, as I had said, and accepts hazards and terrain between the Tapu Lele and Tapu Fini, I feel like they will edge out a win here in this matchup.
What do you think, Rewt?
Yes, so on my end, I also have the Fairy type team winning this one as well. I do really love the Dragon type team. They're one of, again, my top three teams coming out of the draft, and I think they've consistently been in my personal power rankings up near the top from the very beginning. But in my mind, this is just going to be difficult to kind of deal with, right? So the Magirna on its own is going to present its own issues, and with a Shuckleberry, it can kind of just take a hit, click Ice Beam, like there's situations where it doesn't even need kind of it's very static. It can click Ice Beam, and there are two potential threats between the Garchomp and the Zygarde. Those are two huge potential sources of offensive pressure, just gone to a single Ice Beam if the Magirna just has Shuckleberry on it, right? And just kind of mismatches like that make it really, really difficult to kind of overcome this type advantage. But like I said, I still think that this is one of the strongest drafts here. I think I believe in this team very much. I think there is a lot that can be done here. I was really genuinely impressed by his earlier weeks. I think he built very creative things, very outside the box things, that I think can definitely carry him over. But I had to pick with the type advantage, I suppose, in this week. And going with the community here, it does look like they also picked with the type advantage here as well. And this one isn't quite as one-sided as some of the other type advantage picks here. This one's only about 2-1 on the ratios here. But with that, Jackson, what do you think?
I agree with both of you. I agree with both the points that you've made about how it's hard for the Dragon type team to actually get any offense off on the Fairy type team because their stab is null and void. But I also am going with the Belleville Buizels. They got a clean sweep this week, so I think it's not an easy matchup, but I think it's a lot of the pressure is taken off the Belleville the Buizels because of the matchup in their favor.
And if nothing else, this is one of the matches that I'll be most curious to watch because, like I said, I think this Dragon type team has really shown itself to be kind of a creatively built team when it needs to be, and this is going to be one of the situations where I think he's going to throw just a lot of ideas out there, and I'm very curious to see what he comes up with.
That's very true. Now for the fourth matchup of the week, we have the South Dakota Sunfloras, the bug type team, versus the New York EXCELPIKAS, the fighting type team. Rewt, what is your take on this match?
Yeah, so for me personally, I would go with the bug type team, the bug type team, the South Dakota Sunflower. And this is an interesting one because there's no technical type advantage, but bug does have an inherent resistance here. And it's just going to be a really interesting matchup. I think that this fighting type team has a lot of the tools that it needs to beat this team. I think this match could definitely go either way. But at the same time, I've been just really impressed with the way that the bug type team has been playing, and it's not just getting wins; they've been winning in a really confident way that shows really confident team building, and they seem to want to go into every week with a very direct plan and kind of just executing it again, just really confidently. That's the one word that comes to mind whenever I, kind of watch these matches back. I think they're going to come in with a very, again, strong, direct, confident team, and I think it's ultimately going to be enough to take on this fighting type team here.
What do you think, Marsh?
I do agree with a lot of what you were saying, and I also did go for the bug type team this week. Both types resist the other, so it is very even and equal for a playing field for the typing itself. So it's really going to come down to the coach's decision and how they drafted, and if they can pull enough tricks on their sleeve to edge a win over the other team. And I feel like having things such as the Terrakion and the Infernape, which are very fast, can be run Scarf and outspeed almost anything on the bug type team with a stab super effective move on just about everything on the bug type team, is going to be very, very hard for the bug team to pull something out here. But I think the Golisopod is going to be huge in that with an Aqua Jet or a first impression doing a lot of damage on the Mega Gallade and almost one-shotting it from my damage calcs, as well as the Scrafty, which might be run for Intimidate. I also feel like if they get their own Stealth Rocks up for with Crustal, they can pop a lot of sashes for things like the Hitmonchan that are very, very key to tank hits for something or from something like the Pheromosa. And another key player in this fight is going to be that Mega Pinsir with aerialate quick attacks, aerialate returns, a lot of flying stab that this fighting team can't really handle too well. So I feel like having that priority flying move to be a great revenge killer and then switch it out into something bulky like the Illumise with the berry, who can defog or tailwind even, could be run very optimally against a fighting team that does look very, very strong, but doesn't have too much for something like Flying Stab. So with that said, I did go for the bug type team this week.
I agree with both of you. I also went with the South Dakota Sunflowers with Libs. Libs, hands off to you. You've really impressed me the last 2 weeks with your draft and your battle style. It's actually like opened my eyes of what like a bug type team drafted could do. And I'm sure I'm not the only one in that regard. But I think just Libs, her battle style, edges out over the New York EXCELPIKAS and Crystal. I agree with you with the Pinsir, with Airlate, and I think Orbital and Illumise are going to be critical in this battle. But I think that Libs is going to edge out here. Now, what did the fans say, Marsh?
The fans went with SDS as well, so all of us are in agreement here with the bug type team carrying out this win. It was very close compared to the other matches this week, and that is because it probably is very even in typings compared to the other matchups. So I have to agree and like say that the fans did a good job and did their research on this one, most likely picking the SDS for the win.
I've seen a lot of teams here, and I am often guilty of it myself. A lot of teams here kind of build not to lose. They just kind of build to check everything that the other team can do. But this bug type team, they build to win. They build very offensively, and they often put themselves in very good positions reasonably early, and it can just steamroll from there.
I see a lot of similarities between this bug draft and this fire draft, and so far they're doing very well in this league, and I have a feeling that they're going to continue doing so later on into this season.
Absolutely.
So next up on our plate, we have the water type team, Arizona Arceus, versus the Scarlet City SCIZOR, the psychic type team. Now this is going to be interesting because this is one of the teams, matchups that is not super effective. Now, Rewt, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, this was kind of a difficult one for me. I kind of see a lot of things here that can counteract each other. For me, I'm gonna go with the water type team here, but there are a few things going on that I'm thinking about most of all. First of all, I see the Dracovish, and I think the door is wide open for Dracovish in this type of matchup. There are a few things like the Slowbro, like the Bronzong, like the Executor that can kind of come in on it depending on how they're built. But those are all things that kind of get dealt with by Blastoise coming in, clicking Shell Smash, or even if it doesn't, just having that Mega Launcher boosted Dark Pulse can directly deal with. And I think ultimately there are a lot of different moving parts in this matchup, but a lot of what I'm seeing is a lot of pieces on this water type team that can open the door later on for the Dracovish to kind of go through this team pretty directly and kind of manage it very directly. What do you think, Marsh?
I agree a lot of what you said, and I did go for the water team as well this week. I have been hating on Chris a little bit, and I feel like this is his week to show me in particular, or especially, that he did draft a good team, he knows how to use it, and he can do well with it. I feel like he has two major weapons that are going to almost carry him through this fight and make it so that Psychic does not have even a remote chance to win this battle, to be honest, because of that Shell Smash Blastoise can basically live a hit from anything that the Psychic team wants to throw at it, and then go for that Mega Launcher, Dark Pulse, as you had mentioned, as well as the Dracovish with either Officious Rend, or if the Slowbro or Executor come in, as you had mentioned, those two can't really do anything to the Dracovish. And if they're switching into it, they're going to take a big hit and not be able to really deal something back as hard. As well as if he doesn't run choice on this or on the Dracovish this week, the Dracovish has access to Crunch and Leech Life, which the Leech Life getting health back, because it would probably be chipped down a little bit, getting that health regen as well as super effective, quad effective on the Executor could be monstrous for this team. And that Pelipper, like not much resists the Vicious Rend in the first place. So if he does just want to choice band, it's still going to do a lot of work. I just don't see much that the Psychic team can do to really both outspeed the Blastoise and kill the Dracovish before it does damage to his team without putting too many resources into handling those two mons in particular. So I feel like if they do, it's going to be very hard to deal with the rest of the threats that the Water team has in its possession. So for those reasons, I went with the Water team this week.
I I agree with you guys once again. I'm going with the AZA, the Arizona Arceus, and I think partially is that I see his record. He's 0-2, and I think there's like a little hunger there. He wants to kind of prove himself that he's a good competitor. He has a great team, and so I think that has an edge because like
It's thirsty.
yeah, it has an edge. He wants to perform the best he can, and I think that Dracovish, as you said, the Pelipper, I think that he just pure strength wins this matchup.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And
the fans do agree with you as well. Even though it isn't a direct typing advantage or matchup, it was vastly the majority picked the Water type team for this win over the Psychic type team in SCS.
Yeah, and I think one thing that the community kind of is looking at when they evaluate this one as well is that records don't 100% matter as much in this type of a format, because obviously you have to remember that one of this Water type team was a direct type disadvantage. So they can kind of just look at this matchup like 1-to-1, and I don't think that they're looking at records as much as you would in a normal league. And like you said, he's absolutely wants to win this week, and I think he's going to do whatever he's going to get it this week.
Agreed.
next up, we have the Carolina Crush Claw, the Steel type team led by Trippy, versus the Tennessee Tyrants, the Fire type team led by Demo. Now, Marsh, what did you think of this matchup?
I think it's going to be very hard for Demo to lose this fight, in all honesty. I feel like his team, even without the typing super effective and such, his team is very fast, it's very hard hitting. He can't even run it bulky if he wants, with options such as the Arcanine with Morning Sun or Torkoal or the Volcanion. But he's going to be setting the pace for this fight, I believe, and he's going to be making sure that the Steel type team, Trippy, is going to be on his toes, and Trippy needs to utilize that Heatran as much as possible, having that Flash Fire. But from the past weeks, I have seen his tendency to not run Air Balloon, and many teams or many Mons on this Fire type team have access to either Earth Power or especially offensive enough to where they can run an HP Ground and do a lot of damage to this Heatran and maybe even one-shot it, which leaves the door wide open for the Fire Stab on this team to kind of wreck shop between this. Victini can just Scarf or Vex itself into a Searing Shot or a V-Create and wipe out anything other than Heatran once it's down. I feel like the Steel team is naturally bulky and not very fast, other than the Lucario and the Metagross in some ways. And I feel like if it doesn't pick or utilize some of the options it needs and uses them very, very well, it's not going to be able to do enough against a team this fast, this aggressive, and under a very great coach. So, like I had said earlier, I went with the Fire type team this week, and I'm rooting for Demo.
What do you think, Rewt?
Yeah, so this was a very interesting matchup for me because these were two of the drafts that were down there on the initial rankings for me. I think that this fire type team has done a lot. They've been winning in very convincing ways, and one of my criticisms of both of these teams is that they don't cover their weaknesses as well as they probably could have, and more attempts could have been made to kind of do that in the drafting process. But this Tennessee team has been consistently building to their strengths. They've been building very offensively. They've been doing a lot of damage very early, and they've ultimately been snowballing a lot of very convincing wins here. And like you said, I think it's going to be a very difficult one for this fire type team to win. I think that a lot of my initial criticisms of this steel type team kind of still apply here. I think that a lot of their weaknesses are not mitigated as much as they can be, and here comes a direct weakness coming for them in this week. So it's going to be obviously really interesting to see how both of them build, but like I was saying, this Tennessee team has a huge opportunity to come in, get their really strong offense going, and like I said, like they have been doing, kind of building to their strengths, building very offensively, and kind of do what they need to do in this week and come out with a win. And it does look here like the community agrees as well. They are going with this fire type team to take this win in this week. Jackson, what do you think?
I agree with you guys. I agree with the community. This is going to be a very hard battle for the Carolina Crushclaw, and it's going to be a very hard battle for Demo to lose. And part of that reason is the Zard Y with Drought, the Torkoal Y, or the Torkoal with could handle Drought, and that just powers up their moves even further against this team. And I agree with Marsh where he says Heatran doesn't really take or doesn't usually carry the air balloon. So he might carry the air balloon, but if he loses the Heatran, he has no protection against this fire type team. So with that being said, I'm going with the Tennessee Tyrants and Demo's team.
Something else I wanted to point out, and I kind of glossed over, which I'm sorry for, the Volcanion here is super effective against his entire draft, either going for a Steam Eruption on things as the Bastiodon and that Heatran, and then being able to follow it back up or switch back out and switch back in with a Scarf, for example, with a Fire Blast or a Flamethrower. It basically handles the Steel team dominantly. So.
And one other thing that I wanted to mention was, for me personally, my kind of journey with this Tennessee team was, again, this was one of the drafts that I kind of criticized coming out of the draft, and they've been kind of winning convincingly. And this was the first week where I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to give them more of a chance and try to kind of overlook the kind of nitpicks that I had of the initial draft, because he has been building to his strengths quite well, and then here comes a very direct type advantage for me to want to go with him this week.
That's very true. So now last but not least, we have the Mount Silver Weaviles, the Ghost type team led by 2-Bit, versus the Baltimore Braviaries led by Playtendo, the Dark type team. Now, Rewt, what do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, this one was really interesting because, again, this Dark type team was one of the ones that I had originally had kind of in the middle up, higher up in the pack, and this Ghost type team was one of my top drafts coming out of the draft. But this is a direct type advantage once again, and there is a Dark type team that has been playing very well. They've been building very, very offensively, very directly, and they've been kind of playing it really offensively, really confidently, and I like what they've been doing so far. I definitely am going with this Dark Side team to take it out. Obviously, they here both resist and deal super effective damage, so it's going to be really difficult here for this Ghost type team to kind of get a lot of offensive pressure going in general, but this Ghost type team is also very offensive, and with a team like this Dark type team that can kind of break down their handful of defensive presence early, it can really start to steamroll things, especially if this Ghost type team, their offensive presence is not able to just secure Okos, which looks like it's going to be difficult for them in this early game.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with that. I I want to start off by saying that I have a lot of faith in this dark type team, and I even underestimated it earlier on in my initial power rankings, and
Absolutely,
it's
me
still
too.
exceeding my expectations because I do feel like Playtendo is a very good trainer. I mean, a very good coach, and he knows how to run his draft well. And I feel like this might be the first 6-0 that we see in this league. To be honest, the only thing that I really see that 2-Bit has against a dark type team like this is that Mega Sableye. And if that Sableye gets toxic from like a gung shot, for example, from the Alolan Muck, it's going to be very, very hard to set up and then reverse sweep this dark type team. And once that is out of the way, having that Mega Absol being very fast and getting a sword stance up and maybe even like sucker punching a lot of things, as well as the Bisharp and the Greninja being able to have such a wide move set and be able to handle the secondary typings that the Ghost team might have, it's going to be very, very hard for 2-Bit to win this matchup. And I feel like Playtendo just has too many weapons with a type advantage like this. So I did go with the Dark type team, and Playtendo, I feel like he can do a lot of work on here and potentially 6-0, like I mentioned.
I
Yeah,
like that prediction.
I also went with Playtendo and the Dark Tide team. I, along with you guys, I kind of misjudged Playtendo's team because of kind of just overlooking them among the shuffle of the other teams. But he made it clear the last 2 weeks that he's here to play. He's here to win dominantly. He's here to play offensively into his strengths. And I think he drafted the perfect team to coincide with his play style. Well, now with that being said, having the type advantage just adds to that. And because of that, he has Greninja, which has Protean, which is also just regular Dark type, Hydreigon, Bishop, Grimmsnarl. I think he has everything here to win against 2-Bit. It's a very hard matchup for 2-Bit.
And before we go into the community and what they say, I just want to quickly point out something that I just thought of. Last week, I believe he played against the water type team, and we were both saying like it's going to be a tough matchup for him because he's going to have to rely on that Cacturne for a lot of that water offensive presence. And then I watched the battle, and he was like, I'm not only not even going to bring the Cacturne, but I'm going to deal with this water type team with this very strong offensive water type team. And just leave the Cacturne on the bench. I've been consistently pretty impressed with this dark type team, and it looks like so has been the community ratings. They pretty overwhelmingly went for this dark type team in this final community pick.
I just want to point out, because it was brought up that the water matchup he had in the last week, he decided not to use Cacturne and instead went with Shiftry rather, and he didn't even really use it for the grass stab. He mainly used it as a defogger and as more of a bulky utility mon. And I agree that I feel like that was a good decision on his part, and I feel like he's such this out of the box thinker, and he's so versatile that he's going to think of strategies that are going to be completely unexpected from a ghost type team like this and 2-Bit. So I feel like he has even that edge over it. I feel like he's definitely going to be a dark horse in this league moving forward into later and later weeks.
That is very true. So yeah, these are our picks for the week 3 pick'ems. We would love to hear your voice in this picks. If you go down below in the description, there should be a link to the Discord. We'd love to have you there to join
Absolutely.
all of us, declare your team. Just follow along with all the news with the MTBA. Any final thoughts from you guys?
Just
Yeah,
hope
we've
that
already
everyone's having fun, staying safe, and maybe they can have some fun with us in this league. And I feel like they're definitely going to be anticipating every week moving forward if they do decide to join in here with us. So
yeah, and we've already talked about again some very creative builders, some very out of the box builds, some very fun builds, some very strong unexpected teams. So we would encourage you to be a part of all that and watch these matches and get excited about these matches as much as we've been.
Also, one final thing. We have apparel for all your MTBA battle needs. We have shirts, we have hoodies down in the description below. And that goes back into the league to fund for everything. So we love to see you guys cop a couple shirts or a hoodie. So with that being said, we bid you adieu this week. We'll see you again next week for week 4 pick'ems.